What happens when America's sweetheart meets The View's most controversial host in a clash that nobody saw coming? You won't believe what unfolds when Julia Roberts faces off against Joy Behar in what might be the most explosive confrontation in daytime television history. This isn't just another celebrity interview gone wrong. This is a full-blown verbal warfare that had viewers across the nation glued to their screens, jaws dropped, watching one of Hollywood's most beloved actresses reach her absolute breaking point live on air. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because you're not going to believe what unfolds when these two powerhouses collide in ways that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about celebrity interviews. Last night's episode of The View was supposed to be a lighthearted promotional appearance for Julia Roberts' latest film project, but what transpired instead was nothing short of television gold and television chaos. From the moment Roberts stepped onto that iconic set, the tension was palpable, crackling through the studio like electricity before a storm. What started as seemingly innocent banter quickly spiraled into one of the most uncomfortable and explosive confrontations ever captured on live daytime television. The trouble began brewing almost immediately after Roberts settled into her chair, her famous smile appearing slightly strained as Joy Behar launched into what she clearly thought would be her typical brand of provocative questioning. But this time, Behar had picked the wrong target on the wrong day, and what happened next would send shockwaves through Hollywood and beyond. "Julia, we're all so excited to have you here." Behar began with that trademark smirk that regular viewers know all too well. "But before we talk about your new movie, I have to ask, don't you think it's a bit hypocritical for someone who's made millions playing America's sweetheart to suddenly start taking on these gritty, controversial roles? I mean, isn't this just another case of a privileged actress trying to appear more relevant?" The question hung in the air like a loaded weapon, and you could practically see Roberts' entire demeanor shift in real time. Her smile faltered for just a fraction of a second before returning, but now it carried a different energy entirely, one that should have served as a warning to anyone paying attention. "I'm sorry, Joy, but I'm not sure I understand what you're implying," Roberts responded, her voice maintaining that famous warmth, but with an unmistakable edge creeping in. "Are you suggesting that actors shouldn't evolve? That we should stay trapped in the same types of roles forever? Because that seems like a pretty narrow view of what art should be." But Behar, seemingly oblivious to the warning signs, pressed forward with the persistence of someone who had clearly decided this was going to be her moment to create television gold, regardless of the consequences. "Well, let's be honest here," Behar continued, leaning forward with that confrontational posture that has become her signature. "You've built your entire career on being likable, on playing characters that make people feel good. And now suddenly you're taking on these darker, more complex roles. And frankly, some people are wondering if you're just chasing awards because the romantic comedy well has dried up. I mean, when was the last time you had a real hit in that genre?" The temperature in the studio seemed to drop several degrees as Roberts processed what had just been said. Her co-hosts shifted uncomfortably in their seats, clearly sensing that something was about to go very, very wrong. But Behar, apparently emboldened by what she perceived as Roberts' momentary silence, decided to dig the hole even deeper. "And another thing," Behar added with a dismissive wave of her hand, "isn't it convenient how all these Hollywood stars suddenly become socially conscious when their careers need a boost? I mean, where was all this activism 20 years ago when you were just cashing those rom-com checks?" That was the moment everything changed. That was the moment America's sweetheart transformed into something entirely different. Something fierce and unapologetic that few people had ever witnessed before. Roberts straightened in her chair, her eyes narrowing as she fixed Behar with a stare that could have melted steel. "I need you to stop right there," Roberts said, her voice now carrying an authority that commanded absolute attention. "First of all, Joy, the assumption that an actor's artistic choices are somehow calculated career moves rather than genuine creative decisions says a lot more about your cynicism than it does about my motivations. But what really bothers me is this idea that caring about social issues is somehow trendy or convenient." The studio fell into an uncomfortable silence as Roberts continued, her voice growing stronger and more passionate with each word. "You want to know where my activism was 20 years ago? It was there, Joy. It was always there. Just because you weren't paying attention doesn't mean it didn't exist. I've been supporting causes I believe in since before you had this platform, and I'll be supporting them long after. Behar, clearly not expecting this level of pushback, attempted to regain control of the situation with her typical deflection tactics. Oh, come on, Julia. Don't be so sensitive. I'm just asking the questions our viewers want answered. Isn't that what journalism is about? The laugh that escaped Robert's lips was anything but amused. It was sharp, cutting, and filled with barely contained fury. Journalism? Is that what you're calling this? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks a lot more like character assassination disguised as entertainment. Now wait just a minute. Behar shot back, her own defensive instincts kicking in as she realized she had seriously miscalculated this encounter. I have been doing this job for decades, and I don't need some actress telling me how to conduct an interview. And I don't need some talk show host who's built her career on controversy and cheap shots telling me about my motivations or my integrity. Roberts fired back without missing a beat. You want to talk about privilege, Joy? Let's talk about the privilege of having a platform like this and using it to tear people down instead of building them up. The tension in the studio was now so thick you could cut it with a knife. Camera operators were frantically adjusting their shots to capture every moment of this unprecedented confrontation, while the other co-host sat frozen, clearly unsure of how to intervene in what had become a full-scale verbal war. But Behar, perhaps realizing that backing down now would mean admitting defeat on her own show, decided to escalate things even further. You know what, Julia? Maybe the problem is that you've been so protected by your handlers and your PR team that you can't handle a real question from a real journalist. Maybe that's why you're so upset. Because nobody's ever challenged you before. The words seemed to hang in the air like a challenge, and Roberts accepted it with a fierce determination that sent chills through everyone watching. She leaned forward, her eyes blazing with an intensity that was both mesmerizing and terrifying. A real journalist? Roberts repeated, her voice dripping with incredulity. Joy, you just spent the last 10 minutes making assumptions about my career, my motivations, and my character without a single fact to back up anything you've said. That's not journalism, that's gossip. And frankly, it's beneath both of us. I don't have to sit here and listen to this, Behar snapped, her face flushing red as she clearly realized she had lost control of the situation entirely. You're absolutely right, Roberts replied, standing up abruptly and reaching for her microphone. You don't have to sit there and listen to this, and I don't have to sit here and be ambushed by someone who clearly has more interest in creating drama than having a genuine conversation. The entire studio erupted in chaos as Roberts began removing her microphone, her movements deliberate and controlled despite the obvious fury radiating from every fiber of her being. Producers could be heard frantically whispering off camera, while the other co-hosts made desperate attempts to salvage what had become an absolute disaster. Julia, please, let's just take a breath here, one of them pleaded. But Roberts was already moving toward the edge of the set, her decision clearly made. No, Roberts said firmly, turning back to address not just Behar but the entire panel and the viewing audience beyond. I came here today to talk about a project I'm passionate about, to share something meaningful with your viewers. Instead, I've been subjected to a series of accusations and insinuations that have nothing to do with my work and everything to do with someone's need to create controversy. Behar, perhaps realizing too late the magnitude of what she had unleashed, made one last desperate attempt to regain control. Julia, you're overreacting. This is just how we do things here. It's nothing personal. Roberts paused at the edge of the set, turning back with a look of such profound disappointment that it was almost painful to watch. Nothing personal? Joy, you just spent the last 15 minutes attacking my integrity, my motivations, and my career choices. If that's not personal, then I don't know what island. And you know what the saddest part is? Roberts continued, her voice now carrying a weight that seemed to fill the entire studio. You had an opportunity here to have a real conversation about art, about growth, about the things that matter. Instead, you chose to go for the cheap shot, to try to tear someone down for the entertainment of your audience. That's not journalism, Joy. That's just sad. With that devastating final blow, Roberts turned and walked off the set, leaving behind a stunned studio. a speechless host, and what would undoubtedly become one of the most talked about moments in daytime television history. The cameras continued rolling, capturing every second of the awkward silence that followed, every uncomfortable expression on the faces of those left behind, every moment of what had become an absolute masterclass in how not to conduct a celebrity interview. As Roberts disappeared from view, her footsteps echoing through the suddenly silent studio, it became clear that this wasn't just another celebrity walkout. This was a moment that would be dissected and discussed for years to come. A moment when one of Hollywood's most beloved figures had finally said enough is enough, and done it with a grace and dignity that made her critics look petty and small by comparison.